Welcome back to Lane Switching. Today I'm in here with a very special guest, one of the faces of Gatineau hip hop, a pioneer in Ottawa and the Gatineau area for hip hop. I'm talking to none other than Poppa Quest. How you doing today, man? Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, man.
Of
Like I've
course.
been watching you for a while now, and I like what you're doing with your platform and your podcast.
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot. Like, as well, I've seen what you've been doing, seen some of the artists you've worked with, and it's actually inspired me to go work with them as well. So, you know, it means a lot to have you in the studio here today. But let's just start off from the beginning. Talk a little bit before music. What was early life for Quest?
Wow. So like you said, I'm born and raised in Gatineau, Ottawa. I was actually born on the Ottawa side, but moved in on the Gatineau side as a kid. And what was life before that? Uh, come from a middle class upbringing on the Gatineau side. Really quickly, as a kid, I knew I was gonna do something with music. I just knew it when I was listening to Michael Jackson records, and because my dad had a record collection, and just by listening to music as an even young kid, I knew exactly what I wanted to do is produce songs and do beats because I was analyzing the way the song structures were made, and also uh, it didn't take too much of a long time for me to actually be involved in music. I would say around the 90s, I started by being a DJ and selling mixtape in high school. That's way before internet, so
Yeah.
no one had YouTube. And also, when I was in high school, my hustle was selling mixtapes. Like we're talking 90, 92, 93, 94, 95. And I would spend my whole weekend just copying my mixtapes on other cassettes and then printing out the labels with the titles of the song. So I became really quickly involved in music like that. That was my first introduction. DJ Quest. I still had the name back then because, by the way, Quest is a tribute to A Tribe Called Quest, which was the first rap group I fell in love with. And yeah, I started selling mixtapes. That was the source of music. And that's what exactly my first introduction.
That's dope. And so when did kind of the shift take where it's like you didn't really want to continue into maybe a traditional job platform or whatever, and you wanted to go into entertainment and you want to take this on as a career?
Well, I'm lucky. Both my parents are very open-minded, free spirit. My dad is more like follow the natural path, the natural route. But my mom is way more free spirit, and it started when I went to university, and I went for like a traditional bachelor degree in administration work, and then try to work at the government, which I did as a government worker, and it didn't suit me at all. Like I didn't like it at all. I quickly found myself in a position that was like, no, that's not me. And as inspiration for people like that want to follow the dream, don't be afraid to like do the jump. There's so many ways to like exploit your life, this especially in this era. But back then, like I just knew it. And that's around 2001 and 2, and I quit university, so I'm pretty much a dropout. And I went to this school called the Audio Recording Academy that I found. Actually, I found how you say that, they had a news clipping and that I fell on when I was reading the journal at one point, the newspaper, and I found that I remember cutting it out and put it on my pin board, and like maybe one day I'll go there, and I eventually went, and that was 2002-3, and I studied how to become a sound engineer there. That school still exists, by the way. It's in the Carling area, and I became a sound engineer there, and that's when I like switched from being a beat maker, just traditional beat maker, to like a producer and stuff like that. So that's around that time I started really become Quest, the music producer.
That's super dope. And let's fast track it to now. Let's talk about a project you know, you've been working on. It's out. People, I don't know if people can still go to it, but I'm pretty sure it's still open. It's a Soundtrack.
Yeah.
For people who have never heard, maybe my audience who've never heard of Soundtrack, how could you describe it?
Wow, it's a soundtrack in one big phrase is like the legacy I want to leave behind. So it's a project that combines both my passions, which is photography and music. So I'm an artist that does photography as well, so visual arts, and I love sounds. So I wanted to combine it in one project called Soundtrack. So I did the first one. First of all, I want to do 10 installments, volumes.
Dope.
So the first one was last year. The exhibit is done, but you can hear the project on Spotify and all. Now I'm doing the second one this year, which the opening is September 22nd at the Ottawa Art Gallery, which is downtown. And I'm still working on it as we speak. The main idea is when you arrive to the exhibit, you're going to see pictures of people I work with, artists, rappers, and next to it, a QR code to listen to the song.
Dope.
So you scan the code and you hear the song from the person in the portrait. So that's why it's called Soundtrack. So you're like listening a song while you're looking at the person too. And all the pictures have been done on film camera. So they're not digital pictures, they're all film. The reason why is because I wanted to tribute the 90s era before digital camera even existed. So when you look at the Source magazine, for example, they were all film pictures. So Soundtrack is a tribute and a nod to that era as well. So that's why when you like look at the pictures, they're all film, and also the songs are really boom bap inspired. Why? Which was the era I grew up in.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, and that's where I fell in love in music, and that's where I still find to this day was the best era, the golden era too.
Most definitely. And I want to kind of speak about that and that era and that type of music. And there's kind of a new term in hip hop, or not new term, but I've seen it as of the last few years, lyrical miracle. When someone says lyrical miracle, is that offensive to you, or do you kind of understand where they're coming from?
I do understand. Like, I'm the one who is not afraid about evolution, like changes, stuff like that. Like, I love music that's coming out right now. There's some like that I'm still a big fan. Like, for example, Larry June, Griselda, everything they're doing. Obviously, they're inspired by the 90s. It's fun to see like J. Cole still dropping lyrical content and stuff like that. So obviously, there's an era that I find was a bit weak when it comes like to the Lil Pump era and stuff like that.
Yeah. Would you say that was like SoundCloud, like 2015, 2019?
Yeah. I was not a fan. Doesn't matter. Like every like perception or taste, it comes from different places, right? Like taste of music, but not everyone loves the music that I do, and I accept that. Doesn't matter. I'll still listen to it, analyze it, and see where it comes from. But go back to what you said, lyrical miracle. That's the first time I heard that term, by the way.
Oh, for real.
So what does it exactly means?
So it's kind of like jabbing almost, not just Eminem fans, but just in general, people who very much get caught up in like that lyricism is the most important part of a hip hop song. Yeah. Rather than the beat selection, rather than anything else, the lyrics are where it's at. Like, so when someone says that, they are kind of, it, in my opinion, whether it's Anthony Fantano or some other, critic online, it's usually taking shot at the early 90s or like just 90s and like early 2000s. Do you feel like that's kind of like, do you understand where they're coming from, or do you feel like they're a little bit like, I don't know what to say, but like,
I understand where they're coming from. Like I said, like every opinion's different. Like every opinion is on its bias. Like obviously, I come from an era that what I was listening was lyrical content, but for me, the first thing I was hearing was the beats, anyways. I always fell in love with the music, the sounds, and what you can do with sounds and stuff like that. So for me, the most important thing, from my perspective, was the beats. And you could have like, and it's funny because all the beats I fell in love with, actually had good lyrics on it too at the
Mhm.
same time. When you're talking about Nas over DJ Premier beats and even a Tribe Called Quest, but they weren't the best lyrical. Like if we take a Tribe Called Quest example, uh, me it was just the beats and the way that the person was flowing on it too.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, that's what matters. Um, to go back to that term, I think what makes a good hip hop or rap song, it's not just one thing itself. It's the whole combination of all these elements coming together. Like for me, if I hear Lil Pump on a DJ Premier beat, it doesn't work.
Mhm.
It doesn't work. Like it's not gonna mesh, and it's not gonna happen. I hope so, but um, it's just the combination of everything that would make a good rap song. And for me, it's the intent behind it too that matters
Mhm.
more than anything else. To go back to what we were saying before we started this podcast, I never did it for the numbers or the clout. So at the end of the day, no matter what style you do, it's the intent behind it that
Yeah.
matters. Uh, that's why sometimes it's hard for me to understand all these meme rappers coming out of nowhere and then disappearing, getting replaced by other things, other meme rappers and all these stuff. So for me, like it's always been about the legacy you leave behind and longevity more than numbers itself, like and streams and the amounts of likes that you get or viral videos and all. So it doesn't matter what genre of music you make it as long as you do it for the right reasons at
Most
the end of the
definitely.
day.
Most definitely. And kind of speaking back to, what makes a great hip hop song is combining a bunch of different elements.
Yeah.
As a creative, you combine a bunch of different elements. You're a videographer, a photographer, a producer, a curator, whatever the case may be. You do a bunch of stuff. Has there always been one creative outlet that has stood out to you more than the others that you enjoy the most?
That's a good question. It's like asking your parent your favorite kid, but um, no, I love them all equally. Like I do three things. I always say I do three things: music, sounds, photography, and videography. I love them all. I think for me in my situation it works out. Like there's always this phrase like if you spread yourself too thin, you'll never be a master at one thing. I think you can actually master a bunch of different things at the same time as long as you're curious and you have the drive and you're passionate about it. There's no worries. You'll still master the craft, and you just have to put in your 10,000 hours no matter what. But sound and audio was always my first love, my first attraction. Photography came in after, and videography. But the reason I do those three things is because, first of all, they just arrived in my world. I never really looked for it. That's another thing. I'm very or like I treat my life in a very organic way. Whatever comes.
Mhm.
And the reason I do it is because, like as creators, sometimes when you like try to focus too much on one thing, you'll get writer's block. You might get you lose your creativity juice and stuff like that. So for me, like going from music to photos to videos is a kind of a way to keep it fresh
Mhm.
too, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be like take a month and just focus on music. Then sometimes in the summer season or winter season, I'll focus just on videos and shoot a bunch of videos, then come back to it. And by doing that in the last 7 years has made me still find every medium or craft passionate and like fresh.
Mhm.
It keeps it fresh, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So to answer your question, I love them all equally. Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And another kind of topic of discussion, I think one of the biggest outlets and one of the best way for artists to not, fry their pockets to make it far in entertainment is Arts Grant. But a debate we've kind of had in Canada hip hop, especially Toronto, is that there's almost two sides of the hip hop scene in Toronto. There's the Arts Grant artists
Yeah.
and the non Arts Grant artists, or like a lot of people would say street artists.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is that similar divide in Ottawa?
About people that getting grants and not.
Or just like, do you think in the Ottawa hip hop scene, there's almost two different scenes?
I don't think so. No. Quick answer. No, I don't think so. I think the Ottawa scene is so unique. It doesn't even compare to any other scenes, especially in Canada. I think Ottawa scene is untapped right now. Like it's actually started to actually take its shape, and we're seeing it evolve in front of our eyes, especially in the last 5 years. From coming from the early starts of it to now, no, there's nothing compared. Like I think we're seeing it develop, and it's gonna happen in the next few years. But obviously, there's people that get grants. I've got grants myself for my project soundtrack, for example, and I think everyone should tap into that. I think there's should be no divisiveness or camps that want to have grants or camps that don't want to have grants. I think we come in a place where in Canada we have the luxury to have grants. The states don't have that. We should tap into that, and also we are paying for those services anyways in our taxes. So to answer your question, no, I don't see it yet, this divisiveness, but for sure, I'm a big advocate of teaching artists how to tap into that market.
Yeah.
Teaching them the knowledge, teaching them the tools of how to actually tap into that money that's given by the government to create your projects. Obviously, there's standards that have to be respected. If you're like a rapper that wants to talk about the streets and the violence and all that, you're not going to touch that money, obviously. So that may be why there's a divisiveness.
But and that's kind of where I'm talking about, is that like in Toronto you have Havaya Mighty,
yeah,
and you have Pressa.
Yeah.
Pressa to the masses may seem like, and may be, a more popular rapper when it comes to a Juno nomination. Both artists get nominated, but Havaya Mighty is the winner.
Yeah.
Do you think that's right, even though Pressa may have a larger reach?
I think Pressa's reach is not as organic as Havaya's reach, though. I think Havaya built an authentic, organic fan base. I think Pressa is more like on the viral tip, right? He shocks people or creates those headlines, those clicks, right? I tend to like more support or go the Havaya route, if that makes sense.
And then when you talk about arts grants, do you think that's fair though, that an artist like her gets the opportunity to get an arts grant, but someone like Pressa is turned away? And when both artists are looking, to invest in their career, but it's not his fault. He's a product of his environment. It's not his fault. He grew up in that place. Do you think that's fair that the government, I mean, it is what it is. They're going to do what they're going to do.
It is what it is.
But do you think it's fair that Havaya gets overlooked than Pressa when Pressa has a very large fan base?
No, absolutely not. I don't think anything is fair in the music business itself. Yeah. We could talk about, do a whole podcast just on the music business itself. I think what's fair is actually, because at the end of the day, we're all products of our own environment, absolutely. And it's at the end of the day is what you do with that that opportunity that's presented to yourself. I think everyone should have an equal chance to a grant. Obviously, everyone should have an opportunity to invest using grants in their own product, in their own music. But I think also you have to like make the special steps or like the special developments on your product or your brand or your music and your craft and your art that creates those opportunities as well for you to be in that grand circle, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people come from a same similarity product of environment as far as presses compared, like in Ottawa scene, get refused for grants but put themselves in a situation that they get better results in the next future grants application and they end up getting grants.
Mhm.
Absolutely. There's like I've seen people go from situations where they get refused and they get accepted eventually. So there's ways to like work on your craft and work on your presentation,
Mhm.
if we must say, that create those opportunities.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But for, I guess, street rappers, do they have to, or should they step away from violent music when it comes to getting funding from another place? And if they want to stick with that violent music, they just have to accept the fact that they're not going to get any funding.
Their funding will come a different way, obviously. I don't know her press's funding come exactly, but
Mhm.
let's not it comes in a different way. Absolutely. um who am I to like say that you should switch your style of music to like get funding? There's ways to like still make it without funding too.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Like there's still ways to make it independently without having grant money or any type of investment. Absolutely. I'm the last person that's going to say you should switch your style to like try to adapt to a certain market. And at the end of the day, I'm a big advocate of staying your true self. Do you, be you. Don't try to fake it to make it either. I'm not saying Avaya's faking it. I think she's as pure as it gets. She's authentic as it gets. But like I said, if the grant is not for you, there's always a different way.
Mhm.
Soundtrack last year I did my exhibit. That was my first grant in a 20-year career. That didn't stop me prior to that. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the best advice I'm gonna say is just be yourself. Be authentic. Do it for the right reasons. No matter what it is. No matter if you're a street rapper, you're a radio rapper, you're a commercial rapper, you're whatever style of music you're doing. At the end of the day, if you're doing it for the right reasons, the doors are gonna open no matter what. And that's just the best advice. Like I'm not saying to change your style to adapt for a certain market. That's not gonna work either. Like I keep saying, like just do you, man. Like at the end of the day, you don't need money to open doors. Money helps, but like I said, the other like big advice I'm gonna say: don't do it for numbers. Don't do it for the clout. Do it for longevity. Do it because you're passionate about it and that's your therapy. And do it because you want to nurture a garden and not a fast food restaurant. Yes, you could be fast food restaurant, get results right away, but you'll disappear really quickly as well.
Yeah.
So do it for the garden analogy. You're planting seeds. You might not get results with those seeds the first year, but they'll come back the next year. Do it again, do it again, do it again. And then eventually you start ending results. So to go back to your grant answer, I don't want to see divisiveness nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see categories you're doing this rap so you're not getting access to grants. No, I think everyone should benefit. And to Ottawa scene, what's beautiful about it now is it's on tap. It doesn't have a sound.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a pure like market yet.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have an ecosystem yet. It's starting with people like yourself, with people like Cranium,
Mm-hmm.
like people with House of Ensemble, House of Paint, oh Mike, all these little groups are trying to create an ecosystem here in Ottawa so that we can all benefit from this and we can all tap in and we can all contribute. And at the end of the day, you do you, whatever style of music you want to do. And if, like I said, you do it for the right reason, you'll benefit from it. You'll get a grant eventually because there's grants for everything. There's like, so our job as creators from the Ottawa scene is just to like create this ecosystem that is going to benefit everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying like it's going to benefit the commercial artists as much as the street rappers. Everyone should get in to tap in and work together, but still all collaborate and work for the same goal as creating this ecosystem. As long as we don't have this healthy ecosystem working, it's just going to be difficult to retain artists here. Everyone's leaving, or like to keep them, and just it's going to be difficult to like for everyone to benefit from those grants at the end of the day, if that makes sense. I know I'm talking a lot and I'm saying a lot of different things in one answer, but I'm just an advocate for there's a piece of the pie for everyone, man.
Yeah.
And everyone. It's just at the end of the day, do it for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it for the culture, the art form, and for yourself.
So just kind of speaking about content, the new era of content, the new era of the internet, we kind of spoke a little bit about before, but content in general seems a little oversaturated, more than ever.
Yeah.
And so now in this new era, it just seems, it seems so easy to create and so easy to reach an audience. But do you think before, pre-internet era, do you think it was easier to reach a target audience than it is today?
I think there's pros and cons for both era, the pre-internet and the now era. I think the cons of this era right now is everything is oversaturated. Like you said, the online content, the number of artists that are out there and self-distributing. You could drop a song in 24 hours and it's on Spotify.
Yeah.
And I think that saturates the market, hence makes it tougher to really put yourself out there and create an audience. The before internet era obviously was more difficult to produce your music. You had to actually go to a music studio. You had to pay for the studio time. You had to invest in yourself so much, even create flyers, go out there, put flyers, a music video. Man, that was difficult. Yeah. You can just pick up a SLR camera and shoot a music video. You had to hire a company and stuff like that. But what it did is it made you very driven and passionate about it and very involved in your craft. That's the thing. That's the biggest pro, I must say. It made you really invest in yourself and really dedicate yourself to your craft. Hence, make it more easier to attract people because you were so involved in your craft and so dedicated to it. But naturally, you attract people just by being so dedicated, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right now, it's easier to put your music out there, but it's tougher to get recognized in a sense, and to retain followers and retain attention of those people.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess, like we spoke earlier before recording the podcast, you can use the social media tools, but you still need to go the old school way and get yourself out there.
Yeah.
And physically go shake hands, physically go talk to people. And there's no better way to create an impact on someone is having a face-to-face conversation and literally just spill your tea and sell yourself and be there presently. And I'm a big advocate of the slow pace of getting a fan base. And the best way to do that now, though, and that's the biggest pro of this era, is you get to see it. Who likes your posts and who shares your stuff. Before that, you wouldn't see it physically,
Yeah.
like you like unless someone calls you and like, "Yo, I fuck with your shit," but or buys your CD from your hands. But now you get to see it. So use that to advantage. Check your stories. Check who are the names like always there, like regularly on a basis. You only need like 10 people, and nourish those 10 people. Tell them hey, thank you for sharing my stuff. Give them a free shirt. Go the extra mile, and that goes a long way in this life now. If you like reach out to your number one follower on social media and you're like, hey, I want to give you a free shirt, thank you for supporting,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's not expecting that. That's going the extra mile, and that's the thing that most people like forget to do now in this era. Go the extra mile, and what that's gonna do is have the ripple effect. That person's gonna talk about it, influence maybe other people, and so on and so on. So never be afraid to like go the extra mile in this era that we tend to forget about because we're just all behind our phones now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And just kind of getting back to it, but like, do you find that almost like pre-internet, the internet almost brought clutter? It
Yeah.
brought a lot of people in that were kind of just down to do it as a hobby
Yeah.
and down to dabble, but weren't taking it seriously. So something I guess that was good about back then was there was just less clutter.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get to put yourself out there easier,
Mhm.
obviously, because you're not within the big massive clutter like you're talking about. So I guess again it goes back to like being yourself, man. Whatever, like if you're like in this era and using those tools of social media, just be yourself, man.
Mhm.
The other con with what's going on right now, I see a lot of people trying to be something like that's already out there.
A copycat.
A copycat, like, oh, this seems to work, let me try to do that too, instead of just being himself. So it goes back to being yourself. I'd rather have 5 authentic views on my post than 1,000 bots. You know what I mean? Because you're using those same hashtags and using all the same copycat formula.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, it goes back to what I'm saying: be yourself.
Most definitely. And talking about different generations, there is, I think it's soon or it's out, the 83 Till Infinity project going on,
Yes.
put on by Shifter, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
There has been now, I guess, 30 years in Ottawa hip hop, 30 years of history. How do you feel like this new generation of Ottawa hip hop is gelling with the previous ones? And what do you think the new generation can do better to connect with the previous ones? And what can the older generations do to connect better with the new generation?
Good question. And that exhibit you're talking about is on right now.
Mm-hmm.
It started like 2 weeks ago. It's 40 years of hip hop, 40 years. And all this is in collaboration with this anniversary of the 50th anniversary of hip hop that's happening this year.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they decided to do this exhibit too at the OAG, Ottawa Art Gallery. Shifter started it. The conversation happened like 2 years ago. I was part of the research team. I feel grateful for that. And my soundtrack too is a part of this exhibit.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah. So it's one section of the exhibit. So you can go see it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that when I said earlier, the launch is September 22nd, is going to be in this exhibit. So now to go back to your question, what can the new generation do? Well, first of all, go see the exhibit. Go see the exhibit and see what came before you. I think being in touch with that is a good start. Understanding where you come from, where this culture comes from in Ottawa. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would go see the exhibit, didn't even know this was existing.
Yeah.
Here in the 80s, in the early 90s, that people were doing breakdancing battles in 83 on the Rideau Center rooftop.
Mm.
People don't know about that. So the first step is go educate yourself. Go be in touch with that. And the second thing is not be afraid of collaborations. A lot of people I see now, they want to do it themselves. Everything's like self-made, self-motivated. I want to like self-record myself, self-produce myself. um, I grew up when I first started. I had mentors. I had people teach me the ropes. I had people like show me the ins and outs, and that's a good thing. You should not be afraid of learning from the past, right? And learning from OGs, learning from mentors. Yes, you can find any tutorials on YouTube.
Of course.
That's beautiful, but there's nothing better than just learning from people that did it before you. And the same message goes to the OGs. Not be afraid to like let the new kids in.
Mm-hmm.
It goes both ways. So I think collaborations, working together, not be afraid to like bridge the gap,
Mm-hmm.
bridge the generational gap, and understand the kids what they're doing now can still be applied with what we were doing back then.
Yeah.
You see a lot of old school cats, like they're always like criticizing the new ways of doing the new sounds and all.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not like that. I want people to work together, and that's another reason I did soundtrack. The first installment, there's a kid by the name of NLN who's 19 years old on the project.
Most definitely.
Who I respect a lot, and there's also people my generation on the same project in the 40s. So it's good to like collaborate and work together. So educate yourself and not be afraid to collaborate and ask OGs questions. Hey, what do you think about this thing? What do you think about my new record? And not be afraid of criticism too, like learning from that. And I think like having an open discussion helps, and that's the reason they did this exhibit, to create discussions.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Shifter and OAG for like creating this, because that's never happened in Ottawa. When I said earlier, this market is untapped for real. Like this type of exhibit never happened before, and I don't think it never happened period in Canada. So go see it. It's on right now until February. So and it's free.
Yeah.
And every time you'll go there physically, you'll get to meet people. And that's going to open doors, and that's going to open new discussions. So it starts with going with what happened before you. What's the past? Because it's never been documented, and we have the chance to have it now.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
For sure.
Have you seen it?
No, not yet, but I'm going to
go
go.
See it.
Either if I can make time in August, I'll go. If I can't, I'm going September, but I'm definitely going to show up. And I think when it comes to artists, whether young or new, is that artists are very like, they're set in their ways.
Yes.
And so I find a lot of times, a lot of that stubbornness can, block that creativity. And so a lot of times you never even think about it, but somebody who is, 5, 10, 20 years older than you can be on that same wavelength as you, but it's that stubbornness that holds you back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just allowing yourself not to get too controlled by your ego. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Well, ego is a killer for a lot of things, but that stubbornness, like you're talking about, I've seen it. Like, no, I want to learn by myself, and I don't need like to learn it from the past. But like you said, you can be on the same wavelength and still have like 15 years of age difference. I've learned from young kids new stuff that I can apply in my own craft, right? So, and same goes for them. Like, you ask me questions, I'm an open book. Like, I don't, like, it goes back to collaboration. A lot of people are afraid to share their knowledge, and you see that in Ottawa. Like you shouldn't be afraid to like share what you've learned, because it's only going to benefit this ecosystem I've been talking about. So put your ego aside and not be afraid to like work together for the same goal.
For sure. And getting back to you and what you have going on now and what you have going on in the future, what is next for Quest?
I don't think too far ahead. I let it come to me a lot in life. For the same reason, soundtrack, yes, it was sort of planned, but it just came together organically. Right now, what's in my near future next is soundtrack 2, which is going to be the official launch September 22nd at the Ottawa Art Gallery. So I'm working on that. I'm actually going there next after this interview.
Dope.
To bring a new frame on the wall. But I let it come to me. I don't even know like what's coming next in 2 years from now. I know that I will always work on different projects when it comes to shooting music videos and stuff like that. But you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have done an exhibit. I didn't think about it. I didn't know. I would have probably said, yeah, probably not. But it happened. So it's good to like, my reason I'm saying that is it's good to plan ahead, but sometimes it's good to like think in a moment as well and let things come to you organically. And how do you do that? It's again by being yourself and understanding what your skills are and what your goal is in life and what your person, what you represent. So as long as on a daily basis you get those small victories, opportunities will always come. Maybe in a month from now, an opportunity will drop on my plate that I didn't even envision.
Hmm.
So that's beautiful to let things unravel like that and not to think too much far ahead and let the present moment speak for itself.
For sure, for sure.
But to answer your question, soundtrack too. That's the next thing I'm really working on right now.
Yeah. So make sure when that drops, when that, art gallery is out and available for people to go see it. Go see 83 Till Infinity now.
Yeah.
Whenever you have the time, go out and see it. But for the people, where can they find you on social media?
So the best way to find me is Instagram. Instagram has been the best tool as far as socializing, networking, and putting myself out there. So Poppa Quest, Poppa Quest on Instagram, and yeah, like I said, I'm an open book. You want to share music with me, I'll answer. If you want to like ask me a question on how to like do certain things, I'll answer. Like the same way we introduced ourselves, and I'm just all about sharing knowledge right now, like, and working together. So yeah, feel free to reach out. And funny story, I go by Quest, but the handle Quest wasn't available,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
I had to like put a new moniker, and I've been called Poppa Quest since 2009 because all the artists I work with, I tend to develop this big brother relationship with them,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it kind of stood, and it stood the test of years, and now people call me Poppa Quest, so I find it funny. But yeah, I don't mind it at all, but it's just kind of funny because I don't have kids of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
own. But it's just this big brother relationship I develop with artists. Yeah.
That's super dope. That's super dope. So that was the Papa Quest interview. I'm DF2. That's my guy, Papa Quest.
Thank you so much for having me, bro.
Of
This was a
course, bro.
beautiful experience, and cheers to you. And like you said, keep going, keep doing what you do. You're feeding the ecosystem your own way. So
I
we
appreciate
need
that very
that.
much. I appreciate that very much. That was the Quest interview. Peace, y'all.
Peace.